Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I have a fun video today. As many of you may know, or some of you may know, I made this video on my experience at the UJ Open Chess Championship. It was a mixed day, but I fell in love with one of my favorite openings again, and that was the French defense. So, we're going to have a look at how it's gone since then, because I have played 7 games since then, and they have been absolutely insane. Some of them, and you can see my record down here. 5 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss. I have lost 1 game out of the 7 times I have played the French defense since the UJ Open, and it has been absolutely insane. So we're looking at the first game, played on October 21st, so 7 days ago. It was e4, e6, obviously the French defense, d4, d5, and it was a win-hour variation of the French defense. Now, if you followed the game at the UJ Open, my opponent played bishop to d2, and then I actually made a mistake by playing knight to f6. But here they played e5, so we're kind of in like a bit of an advance, so I know to play c5. Then they played a3. I took, and what I did here was I played knight to e7, and I allowed them to take on c5. This was done for a couple of reasons. One, this pawn structure is absolutely terrible. So even though they're upper pawn or upper point of material, it's still only 0.5. And now I can play queen c7 and I target both. They play bishop to e3 and I can just play queen takes e5 and get the center pawn, which I think is much more important. And look at that, the eval already thinks I'm even slightly better. We're queen to d4, and now a very nice move, I thought. Knight b c6. Why? Because I don't need to take right at the moment. I can allow them to take me and then get my knight into the center. They pinned my knight. Now my queen's not defended, so now I decided to take. They took with the bishop, which I thought was strange. I was like, why wouldn't you take like this? Right? I know it kind of blocks in this bishop, but it just makes more sense to me, and then I have to play something like, knight f5, for example. And even then, I'm targeting the bishop, but I'm not really putting enough pressure on this, and there's like castle, and then they forget that this knight's no longer pinned. All of that to say, bishop takes d4 was very strange. I played short castles. Now knight f3 came. I played a6. The bishop dropped back. And here I played knight to g6. And I have a very clear idea. I would like to play e5. Now, what most people do here is they castle. But here my opponent lost the game in one move, and they played g3. Yep. Now, for those of you who are confused, I just played e5. Bishop e3, e4, fork. Won the game. And look at my rating, 1989. It was a beautiful rating. I was very high. It doesn't stay like that. Second game. Right, these are all the French defense, obviously. That's why you tuned in. You tuned in to see the different ways you can play the French defense. This one, we had like a 2 knights French, which is always interesting. But then they took and played bishop e2, knight to f6, castles. h3, I played c6, and they played d4. And what we basically did is, we still are in a 2 knights French, but it's more like an exchange, because we've both lost our e-pawns, and we have this structure on both sides. But they've played knight to c3, which might be actually incorrect, because you probably want to play c4. So I played bishop back to d6 because I didn't see the point in keeping the bishop there. I thought it might just get kicked. I could double damage the structure, but then they get to play c4 like twice. Bishop to e3, a6, and now queen to d2. Now, ideally, if I could transport this knight over there, I would be very, very happy. But I played queen to c7. The bishop came forward, rook to e8, rook fe1. And knight b d7. And I knew I'm slightly lagging in queenside development. I still have the bad French bishop, which is always a problem. I thought about trying to get it out this way, but it didn't appeal to me. I thought I want to go this way with the bishop. But again, these squares are occupied. I can't really go there. So the knight comes out first. a3. Now I can put the knight in the center and put my second knight there. And I thought, actually, this looks quite good. But they just played bishop here. I took and played g6, obviously, because this was a little bit of a threat, just looming. They traded the rooks, played queen here. I defended, got my knight out, and then got my rook out. All good. The rook comes forward. I have to play bishop to e6 Because if, for example, I play something like actually, I can get away with king g7. But, you do worry about stuff like this. But as long as I take with the queen, I'm fine. Because actually they can't sack because I can take with the knight. That's the whole idea. Bishop to e6 I thought was fine. Queen came forward, but now I can actually play bishop to f1. Or bishop to f8, rather. Queen drops back and now bishop to g7. I thought this was pretty good. I have lost a little bit of advantage, but I think it's okay. Knight to a4. This is the problem with the light square structure that I put up. This knight is looking to infiltrate. So that was a very good move by my opponent, but I am better if I play the shocking move, queen to a5. Which is not actually that shocking, it's just the fork. And the knight has to go back. And then I can stay here, and then I can actually play like something like queen b6. And I'm fine. I didn't do that. I played knight to d7, offering a trade, which they took. I took with the bishop, reason being I'm offering a rook trade, which they do, play bishop takes, and now they play c3, because they're committing to putting their knight over here. And what we do is we get into an endgame. I play bishop to d7 and then play bishop to c8. Queen comes forward, I attack the knight and end up giving up a pawn. But I thought I could hold this endgame. And you can see my rating has dropped to 1959. It has been a rough few days in terms of overall rating. And I thought, I've got this pass pawn. I'm going to be fine. I attack the bishop. I probe. I did think here, oh, can I get away with d3? It doesn't work because the bishop takes. And then I've just lost my advantage. So I suppose I could grab that. And then this is still level. But queen c1 check here. And then queen c7. And they block. I thought, oh, that's good. Now they've got a weakness. Actually, no, it's not good. But this is not actually about the French. I'm going to finish off this game. This is just about my poor endgame skills. As I give up a pawn. And eventually, moronically, I trade queens at some point here. Because I thought I'd be fine. I trade queens. I don't know what I was thinking. Because I just can't catch the pawns. And his king comes close. And my king can't leave because these pawns are frozen on light squares. So eventually, he goes on to win the game. My opponent. I don't know if it was a he. So that's 1 win, 1 loss. Here's the draw. Here's the draw. And again, it spawns out of a French structure. But at some point, we're going to stop looking at the Frenchiness part of it. So e4, e6, and we've seen this all before, but this is a straight-up exchange French. Knight to f3, knight to f6. And they play this, you see, the important move c4. That's what you want. That's what it's about in exchange French. I trade like this. And actually, something very funny happens. So we trade, go here. Knight drops back, and I take here. I win a pawn. Takes, I take with the pawn. Bishop here. Knight to c6. Rook here. And I play bishop takes b2. How many of you can see a problem with this move? The problem is this, right? Yeah, I'm 1944 at this point. My opponent is 1932. Neither of us see it. He just plays rook ab1. I drop back. He takes. I push my knight into the center. He takes, and comes here. Drop my knight in. And I'm slightly better because I'm up a pawn, which I then promptly lose, and lose another one, so now I'm down. But I thought I'm okay. And I thought I'm going to try and convert this endgame and do everything I can. In fact, I even got here and won a rook. As we give the engine a little bit of time to think. Despite being up the exchange, I'm still worse. Actually, no. The engine finally thought I'm better. I'm better because I'm up at exchange. I've got a rook. Unfortunately, I let the pawn get to a7. And now it's a draw again. I should have blockaded it better. I gave up another pawn. I gave up my rook to get the bishop. And then this was just a drawn endgame. And this is the problem with the exchange French. Eventually, you will create a bit of an endgame, a bit of a middle game. But because it's so symmetrical... Even though, yeah, we had some interesting stuff where I won the pawn, then hung the bishop, and so on and so forth. It's really difficult. Actually, I missed the chance here. Where was the chance? It was here. I missed the chance for mate. Obviously, you can't go here. I think I played queen g6. I had mate in 14 here. Or check, and at least the winning of the queen. I at least had this, which I missed. which is unfortunate. And considering I had 2 minutes on the clock, I played this in 8 seconds. Could I have found it? Probably should have found it, considering I was up a minute. But by the end, like, I'd used a bunch of time. I burnt, and I just had to bail for a repetition of moves as I continued to give checks. And you can see we got down to like less than 10 seconds. I had like 12 seconds. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. From here, it is just win, win, win. 4 wins. And these are the last 4 French games that I've played as well. So here I am, 1958 again. So back up a little bit. I had this interesting structure. F4 played. Which is interesting. Sometimes you're going to get this in the French. You're going to play against some rubbish. And this was a very, very fascinating game. You've got to keep in mind this knight to h6 idea. It's common in the Caro and in the French. When f4 has been played, and the bishop can't take and damage the structure. So c3, and I get my knight in there. I play, bishop to e7. The bishop threatens, and I was like, oh, should I move my knight? Eventually, I just played h5 and allowed them to take, because I thought my structure is quite solid, and I can break with d4. Castles, everything's fine. Play here to fianchetto the bishop after I trade once. And, this is a very interesting structure looking at this, right? It's a very interesting structure because they have committed a lot. But it's kind of frozen on the queen side a little bit. On the king side, rather. White's probably got some targets. I think my structure is solid, but white has the semi-open file. I have this one that I've got to use. So it's going to be about who uses the assets better. And, ladies and gentlemen, I found such a beautiful idea, right? I found queen. I found this, right? As we coordinate our pieces a little bit. Trade. And now I found knight takes e5. Which is beautiful. Beautiful move. 1, it opens the bishop. And that bishop is going to be so important. 2, when they take back, I can play queen takes. And now I'm threatening the bishop with obviously the support of the rook. The bishop can't move anywhere because the queen hangs. Here in my head, I calculated rook e1 and then h4, which I thought was just winning on the spot. And in theory it is. Rook e1, h4, it's winning. Because even though you have queen f2 now, I have rook takes d3. And everything falls apart. But I missed knight e1. Knight f1. I still went h4. I missed that after queen to f2, I now don't have rook takes d3 because it's defended. I forgot that the knight could go backwards. So I just took, gave a check. I didn't want to repeat moves, so I went to c3, and I was like, damn, missed my chance. Now I've got to get a draw or something because I'm down a piece. I might have won some pawns, but the king was quite weak, so I can surely I've got something because I've got this beautiful bishop, I've got a queen, and I've got 2 rooks staring at semi-open and open files. Here they went queen f2, which is a mistake because the reason the queen had to stay on f2 was because you could go to h3. Now when I go here, the king's got to come forward because the queen can't go to block. And now it's about finding the right idea. Rook d7, and now after queen h2, I have rook takes e3 check. Another beautiful, beautiful sacrifice. Because knight takes, and now I have queen e5 check. King slides over, now the queens see each other. I thought I can just probably take this, right? I can. But this is a little bit quicker, f4. Because now I attack the knight, and I also have access to this. Here takes, queen comes in. This was one last plea. Here the best move is probably queen to h5. I just played king g7 because my idea might have been to just wrap the rook around this way because it would be mate. But here they sealed it for me when they played queen to h4, which loses to one move only. Bishop to g2 check. Because the king is deflected, can't go there. And anywhere else it goes, it loses the queen. So you would take, and then I would take here. And then this would be completely winning. I would obviously win this endgame. Knight's threatened. I've got checks here. Pick this up. Pick up a rook. complete domination. That's why I love the French as well, because you get this really, really attacking play. Next game. So many French games. I love the French. If you're watching this video, you think I'm crazy. Ladies and gentlemen, the French is OP sometimes. E4, E6, D4, D5. And here we get, I don't want to say garbage, knight to D2. It's not garbage. I play this line. Reason is, you can't go for the win hour because you just bump into C3. But C5 gets played. Knight G to F3, Knight C6, get pinned. But now I can play, Queen B6. Bishop takes, pawn takes. I think that's important. Knight comes forward, looking to kind of take things and instigate. Allow this trade, and C3. And this is actually a very typical French structure. You can get the bishop out here and try to trade it off, but you've got two bishops. You've obviously got this. You've got your knight in. You can put the bishop here, or, the super fianchetto. And it's a pretty typical structure. So I played bishop to D6. Knight comes forward. Now I'm worried about, takes here, and then they're going to give up my bishop. So I take in the center. Take. Short castles. Bishop to D2. I am worried now about, various ideas. But I just play bishop to A6. Attack the rook. Rook slides over. And I jump my knight into the center. Because this looks frightening. It's not. They jumped their knight in. I was like, that loses. Tactically. Because I can take. Here. Boom. I've taken on F7. Here. I had half an idea to try and sack my knight. It doesn't work. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. So king to H1. I just played, rook AC8. Just got my rook onto an open file. It's going to fly in and help. Bishop to E3 does kind of get rid of me, but now I can just take on B2. They take. And I just infiltrate with the rook, man. The rook is in. And we're targeting stuff all over. They sack the rook for my knight, which I just take happily. Queen slides over. And now look at this. Queen takes. And there are too many threats. And yes, you can kick me here, but now I'm here. Knight jumps forward. Look at this move. Bishop to E2, followed by the absolutely incredible, after rook to E1, bishop F3. Have you ever seen anything like this? You can't take. Firstly, you can't take the pawn because I check and then mate you. Okay? If you, for instance, take this, I just take. And this is still threatened, which wins the queen. On the spot, no problems. And then, obviously, if you sack, you've still got problems. And I'm threatening the bishop and so on and so forth. And not to mention, I will eventually get my other rook into the game. So bishop F3 is such a disgusting move. It is something I'm so proud of. I don't know, am I able to put an emoji? Yeah, let's pull up an emoji. Brilliant emoji. Just look at that. Right? Look at that. Bishop to F3. They did play knight takes E4, and I took. And now they played H4, which actually loses. It's mate in 5. I just played bishop takes G2. King slid over, and then I mated him. There obviously is also this, but you have to deal with now all of this, and it's like mate in 5, but it's complicated. Actually, I don't think I've even allowed mate anymore, but yeah, they played king to H2 instead of taking, but just got mated. Beautiful, 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 and that's the French for you. I mean, we've got 2 more games. We're going to go through them quickly. I don't want this video to go like 40 minutes. So we're going to try and be quick. I also understand as I'm filming this, I just checked in. We're about 20 minutes in. I do realize that there is some lag, and I'm so sorry. Skipped frames. I'm seeing them all over the place. I'm so sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so sorry. But here we are, 1948. So my ratings haven't been too low. French again. Win hour again. Win hour is OP. And just watch this game. So I played C4. And I thought this was really lovely. Because it was an interesting line. Because I doubled the pawns myself, right? The win hour allowed me to also double theirs. If I click the right things. This bishop is under attack. But this is also well defended. And it gives me something to play around. Bishop to D2, short castles. Bishop to B3, knight to C6. And what I just did is, I thought I had the initiative the whole game. I once again was deciding where the bishop goes, because the French bishop, when you kind of open the center a little bit, you can fianchetto. Also, there's always this idea to just go and trade it off for a piece. But I might actually want to play e5, and then this bishop will be beautiful and open. So for the moment, I fianchetto. I drop my knight out to the edge of the board, threatening to take, also threatening to go to c5. Short castle's rook a8, the knight comes forward, and here I just went here. Takes, queen here. Here. And here my opponent blunders. They miss the idea of queen to d5. The idea of queen to d5 is very simple, right? This knight can't come forward. This is defended, again. But also I've formed a battery to g2. So they slide the rook over, rook f1, and lose on the spot to e3. Because mate is threatened. And the bishop. They have to defend, I take the bishop. Queen takes, and now I just go here. Rook fd8. And we maneuver. Trade, and I grab here. I was worried about allowing, rook a1, but I thought queen takes c3. Trade here, and look at that. Bishop to a8. I won a pawn, they came here. I safeguarded my king, and the game ended like this in 31 moves, which is what can happen in the French. The French is so OP. Final game. E4, e6, and we had basically an exchange, right? A two knights exchange or an exchange. And these games are always interesting. Again, opponent playing g3. I don't know. I obviously haven't played the French in a bit of a while. I don't remember a lot of theory with this bishop going to be here. Because you're just staring into this blockade. You can do this. Like, it can be done, but not when you've played the exchange. I don't think it's the correct use of the ideas. But bishop to g2 nonetheless. I kick out, or I attempt to kick out, but they trade. Here, and then I just played knight d7, a4, knight b6, b3, bishop to g4. They kick my knight back, they kick out my bishop. I decide to trade, because it's a bad French bishop. My pawns are on light squares. This is not a bit of a target, but it's defended. But I can play a6. I can drop my queen back, and I can go here and target it. How do you defend? Well, here, okay? How do you defend? You don't. I win the pawn. Queen comes over. I was a little bit worried, but I thought I'll take. And they sacked the rook for my bishop, which I thought was weird. I got my knight to f6, and then here, I just had to be precise. Takes, and drop the rook back, and then here, trade everything, and get to this endgame. Oh boy. I'm up in exchange, right? But endgames are not exactly my speciality, as you saw in the first two games. But I win this. But how? Well, this is just a bit of endgame technique, as I trade off a set of rooks. And now it's about kind of getting the bishop in the right squares. And it was actually quite simple. We locked everything up, and eventually I just won the bishop. And we can just click the fast forward arrow. I took the pawn, and they resigned. So the French defense is just OP, man. Ladies and gentlemen, the French defense. I love it. I love it.